Hey, it's Cat Lover, let's jump right in. Sonic Superstars is a modern, classic-ish styled 2D game that came out pretty recently, not even a year ago in October. Yeah, it came out pretty close to Super Mario Wonder, and honestly that couldn't have been worse for the game. Even so, I pre-ordered it, I played it with my boyfriend, and sure, we had fun, but at what cost? How much effort should a player put into having fun? Enough being cryptic. A lot of people did not like Superstars, and to be fair, I can see why. The game had a lot of things going on that made it feel unpolished and undeserving of the $60 price tag it flaunted. I barely want to pay $60 for a game as it is, but I can tolerate it from games that earn the money it's asking for. Superstars, well, we'll get into that. Let's discuss. Superstars is 2D, so it's pretty standard and honestly controls just like any classic Sonic game. The character models all look very adorable, like a modern revision of the old version of the characters would be. There are many other things to consider though. There are new special stages that involve you swinging your way to a Chaos Emerald moving away from you. Getting momentum and height is important in these levels, and each one of them offers more challenges than the last. It's a very unique special stage that's never really been seen before, and it's quite fun to play at first, swinging around like Spider-Man. Even so, the special stage itself is kinda mid. The environment is pretty boring to look at, and yeah, it's a special stage, so what can I expect? But after replaying Sonic Mania, I gotta say I was looking forward to something more creative. The mechanics of the special stages are also kind of finicky, as you can be staring the Chaos Emerald right in the face and still not be able to grab it, but also being able to dash into it from miles away. It seems really inconsistent and can lead to frustration. Otherwise, it's just okay. The goalpost stages are a rendition of the Sonic 1 special stages, except it's a lot easier to control and you get special coins from completing them. It's really not anything special, and the music, for lack of a better term, sucks bad. We'll talk about that later though. The new stages surprisingly aren't bad, but that's all. They're not exactly great or groundbreaking by any means, but it gets the job done. I guess that's just what Sonic fans have to take, and it's better to take something mid than a big fat L, but it's just disappointing I suppose. Anyway, back to core gameplay. All 5 playable characters have their own playstyle and abilities to use, and I found them all to be interesting. Sonic, of course, is the most basic of them all, with the same base abilities as the rest, but with a drop dash. I know it's not that unique or new, but I'm a sucker for the drop dash, and it really makes the game go by a lot faster. Tails is the same as he's always been, and so is Knuckles, but the most interesting characters are Amy and a new character, Trip. Amy isn't usually playable in 2D Sonic games, so her addition here immediately piqued my interest. She has a double jump, pulls out her hammer while jumping, and with the same controls as Sonic's drop dash, she can continuously smack her hammer forward. Maybe not that great, as I've seen better abilities on her in mods of Sonic 3 Air, but I'm just glad she's here. Other than Trip being super cute, she packs a punch with her abilities, and to be fair, she's got it since her campaign is absolute hell. She can stick to walls and ceilings in a spiky ball, and double jump with a bigger hitbox. It's very similar to the Spikeless from Sonic Colors, and works like Knuckles' wall climb, just with more flexibility. Every character is good in their own way, and even though I feel as if Amy and Trip can have better abilities, I do love that the way they control feels natural. Speaking of abilities, each character has the ability to use new power-ups, some of which were shown a million times in trailers and teasers for the game. These power-ups can make the game go by faster, as you can reach new pathways and make the game a little easier to play, but I just didn't find myself using them that much. They weren't bad, but they just felt unimportant a lot of the time, and didn't have much of an impact on the game. Either that or I'm just really stubborn about the way that I play. Maybe that one. Speaking of different playstyles, multiplayer is also a letdown, and I would have honestly preferred the terrible split screen. I understand how that may have negatively impacted this type of game, but the way in which they handle multiplayer here is a bit reckless. The camera chooses who it wants to focus on, it often slows down or speeds up for certain players, and it can make the momentum of the game feel really, really bad. It's also easier for the game to glitch with the more players there are, but trust me, we'll get to that later. Either way, I can feel as let down or as disappointed as I want. I mean, I'm a Sonic fan, so this ain't a new feeling for me, but as long as the game mechanics and controls feel good, that's all that matters. It seems like pretty much every 2D Sonic game has some issues with boss fights, and this game is no exception, but it has a twist. You can't spam or cheese through bosses anymore, so you often have to wait through a boss's array of attacks before you can attack again. I didn't like this in Sonic Rush, and I don't like it here. It just feels like waiting around to attack again, and usually you only get single time before the boss attacks start up again. If they were going to add this feature to make bosses feel more worth the effort, it should have been done differently, like in Sonic and the Fallen Star. Wow, I'm really ramping up these comparisons, huh? It makes otherwise unique bosses feel so much more bland and tiresome than they need to, especially the bosses in the later half of the game. The bosses are not only longer, but are harder, more annoying, and not very fun when you have to launch around for a million years until you get a chance to attack. Miss your chance and your heroes will start graying from how long you'll have to wait for another chance. Some bosses, looking at you, Fang and Eggman, just really didn't sit well with me. I really don't want to talk too much shit, but honestly, it just made me want to play Super Mario Wonder even more, even though that game didn't come out until a few days later. Sorry, Sonic. The boss fights were the most memorable parts of the game, and not for a good reason. They often take long and overstay their welcome like a colony of rats living in your attic. They could have been fun and worth the time had the no cheesing edition had more thought put into it, but it's too late now. Not all bosses are bad, and some of them are even fun depending on the characters you play as. Even so, they're far from my favorite. You might be thinking that since I've been trashing this game like no tomorrow that I don't like the stages, but honestly, I quite do. The stages are slightly different takes on the levels already done in 2D styled Sonic games like Emerald Hill and Sandopolis, but all of them stand out in their own way. Unlike the bosses, most of the levels don't feel like a giant obstacle put in the game that make you want to play a better game. The level design is smooth and natural, and in classic 2D Sonic fashion, has a lot of ground to cover. It really just feels amazing to speed through the level without a care in the world. Funny how fun games can be when you don't put unnecessary stuff in it, huh? Anyway, the themes of the levels are familiar but unique enough for me, as I don't mind games sticking to a bit of a formula with their levels. All characters have things they're good at, so each playthrough can bring about new experiences that make you feel like you're playing something fresh. The levels also look amazing, and you can tell just how much effort went into designing them. The colors are popping, the background is interesting and sometimes directly affects the foreground, and the levels just fit the Sonic universe very nicely. Some levels, though, are something I'm not a huge fan of. Levels like Sky Tempo feel too slow for a series like Sonic, while other levels like Golden Capital feel super awkward to move through. Speaking of which, the levels have additional levels that certain characters can play through, and not all of them are great. Amy's is kinda like a Shantae and the Pirate's Curse kinda escort mission with way less hazards. All others are honestly just as boring, and after playing Amy's campaign, I didn't see much reason to play them other than because I felt like I have to. I would have liked the levels more if they felt more fun and like I'm actively seeking out a good time, but sadly that's not the case. Some levels are weird, but most are good fun and can offer some solace to the player. The story for 2D Sonic games are basically non-existent, and again, this game is no exception. What, the egg-shaped fiend has dastardly plans and we, the cute colorful heroes, must stop him? I've seen that one before. Anyway, the only story elements are shown through cutscenes, whether in an animated one or with in-game models. I still think the game could have been so special. I mean, just look at these animated cutscenes. Look at the addition of an adorable new character and an old but underrated one. I really like the dynamics between these two. Fang is quite a nasty person, and I still get uncontrollably angry when I remember what he did to Trip, but he gets it, it's both here and in the comics. He's just as selfish and as slippery as ever, but that's how I like him. I'm really glad they didn't change him. Trip is a new character, a super shy but kind sun gazer who won my heart almost immediately. They both work under Eggman, but of course Trip flakes when she's helped by Amy. I really like this addition to the story. Amy being a big old sweetheart has always been a trait I loved about her, and you can see it shine when she decides to help Trip out of a scary situation. Thinking back, there are so many Sonic characters that started off quote-unquote bad before being won over and joining the side of good. We'll see about you. Maybe not an original plot point anymore, but I'm a sucker for it and it won my heart here. Did I already say the animated cutscenes are fantastic? As cute, colorful, and quite frankly, so well done it made me feel like I was watching a fully fledged Sonic cartoon. I wish. The story may be simple, but that paired with the animation and Trip turning into a goddamn dragon, Sega might have cooked here. Oh my god. I'm a music fiend, so I'm so sorry for how I'm about to sound, but I gotta tell you that the sound effects for Sonic Superstars are horrendously bad. I don't remember it being that terrible on my first playthrough, but on my second I could barely hear the damn music. This was with the sound effects turned down, by the way. The sound mixing was overall pretty bad, and it made the game so much more distracting and frustrating than it needed to be. It really does get in the way of the immersion the game could be trying to apply, but to be fair, some of the tracks didn't sound all too good anyway. I think it's because of how many composers were assigned to the game, but a lot of the tracks sounded either straight up bad or like they obviously weren't done by the same person. The all-around vibes of the game are inconsistent now, and it makes me kinda sad because Sonic usually never ever drops the ball on music, well, except for Sonic Spinball. I've heard some of the best songs ever from Sonic games, and I was fully expecting to have an orgasm, but I got edged. It wasn't even like those purposely bad songs with Splatoon where it somehow still manages to be pretty good, just straight up garbage sometimes. I don't know what was going on in the studio, but somebody obviously wasn't a chef. I'm sorry, but this needed its own section. As much as I want to love Superstars, it has some downright inexcusable glitches, especially if you're playing multiplayer. Example A.
Watch out. What the fuck? You gotta be fucked!
And B.
Alright, go now.
No, whatever. We're not getting all of them, are we?
We only need 2 more.
I know that, but...
And C.
I got the fucking... I'm not there! I can't do anything! Hello! If we fucking die,
It really makes no sense for a game to be this glitchy and have a $60 price tag slapped on it. It's not fair to the consumers because I really don't want to be playing a boss that takes a million years to beat just for the game to crash. It's a real letdown, and you'd figure that they iron out the kinks before releasing the game for, and I'll stress again, $60, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I of course don't blame the devs, as they may not have had enough time to polish the game enough, but I regularly shit on Sega, so never think I'm blaming the developers or people who barely get any say. Also, maybe it's just really bad because it's on the Switch, but these glitches have happened across all platforms. Even if it was just on Switch, it's still really bad to have one console not even be able to run your game without it glitching or crashing multiple times. This is 2024, and though there are bound to be glitches everywhere, we need to have higher expectations. Companies that release buggy messes when they can push back the release date are one of my biggest gripes about gaming right now, so I was upset to see it in Superstars. It definitely could and should have been better. So, that maybe wasn't something you expected to hear, or maybe you did. I think I've already made the impression on this channel that I complain a lot. Anyway, Sonic Superstars is a game I was super excited to play, but when I got the game day one, I was oddly unimpressed. Sure, I like the game well enough, and I'll never call it bad, but I just wanted something more. 2D Sonic games aren't easy to come by, so for this completely new one to kind of flop was saddening. Maybe my expectations were too high, cause I'll tell you, I'm usually the one to disappoint myself. I expect a grand, exhilarating game of the century, and when I don't get it, I feel let down. Even so, I'm glad I got the chance to play it again for this video. Despite the glitches, annoying bosses, and awkward levels, it's super fun to play with friends and laugh with them about it. I still got a lot of fun out of this game, and though it wasn't the best, I still think we're taking a step in a good direction. I just think that I need to criticize something I love if I want it to be good. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'm Cat Lover, it's been real. Peace.